DallasCowboys.com, North Texas Mean Green legend, the one and only Kyle Youmans. Kyle, how the hell are you, bro?
What's going on, gentlemen? How are you?
We're fantastic, man. Just having a blast. And it looks like the Cowboys, man, this defensive staff is really coming together nicely. They went ahead to SMU, our rival, and they poached their defensive coordinator. Well, what do you think about this staff that Christian Parker and Shoddy are putting together?
Yeah, I really like some of the additions, and you're talking specifically about Scott Simons there, the inside linebackers coach. And it's funny, I got to call a couple of the SMU games in ACC play this year. I had the one against Miami and the one against Louisville. And the most impressive elements of that SMU team this past year, and if you are a fan of the Ponies, you understand, the defense was really solid this year. And they had multiple guys on that defense that will play at the next level. I think Ahmad Moses, the safety, is a guy that I really liked, and Scott Simons had a big impact on him. He was the defensive coordinator and safeties coach, and Ahmad Moses was one of the more electrifying playmakers in the secondary in college football this past year, led the ACC in interceptions, was a game breaker, especially in that win that they had where they stormed the field against Miami. I like Jeffrey Imba as a defensive tackle up front, who's a guy who was at the Shrine Game a couple weeks ago. I mean, they had pro talent on that staff. They had pro talent at Memphis, where he was at as a linebackers coach prior to taking the DC job with Coach Lashley and company at SMU. So he's one of a number of hires on that defensive staff that I like so far, and he continues to build out a group of guys that I think fits the mold from what Dallas is looking for, which is communication, player-first mentality, and trying to fit some of the good things that they had last year. I know there weren't a ton of them, but some of the good things they took from last year and build on that with better personnel in 2026.
Kyle, do you think that pretty much does it for the defensive staff there? Is it pretty much like, all right, we're ready to rock and roll, head to Indy for the Combine?
Yeah, it's getting pretty close. I'm trying to think of anybody else they could hire.
I guess Zach Orr. Zach Orr is the name that I keep being asked about, Kyle. Do you think now that they've filled out the linebacker roles that one probably not going to happen, or still maybe some optimism?
That's probably right where they were looking at that spot regardless, right? They were looking at because Zach Orr was a linebacker back in his playing days. That's where he came up through the system in Baltimore as well. So I think unless he's open to being an assistant linebackers coach, which I don't know. He was just a defensive coordinator. I feel like that's hard-pressed for me to see him doing that. So I think I'd agree with you. I think it's probably, at this point, maybe one more assistant that's hired, but you've kind of got the framework of your staff going into next year.
What do you think about George Pickens and how this situation could play out where they're at right now? I mean, I feel like the tag was a formality, but now in terms of I know Nick Harris was talking with you guys on the draft show about if there was a trade, the value he could get. I mean, what's your pulse on the GP3 situation?
Yeah, I don't think it's been out of the ordinary from what we anticipated, right? The tag was a formality. I thought it was. I honestly chuckled when those reports started to surface the other day. Dallas is expected to tag. Well, yeah, it's part of the process here with a guy as talented as Pickens. It doesn't mean he's going to play on the tag. It doesn't mean that Dallas wants him to play on the tag. It's just a placeholder to continue negotiation, because think about it the other way. Think about it if you did not tag George Pickens and how much of a conversation that would become, and how scrutinized the front office would be for not doing that. It's a smart thing to do now. Just go ahead and put it there. Make sure that he's under contract control by the Cowboys front office, at least for the 2026 season, and then try and figure out everything from there. I think Pickens' staff knows that they don't want that to ultimately be the case, but it's still a lot of money, and it's still an opportunity for him to build on what he did last year. So nothing out of the ordinary so far. I don't really have a pulse on it one way or the other, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, just because we haven't gotten to the Combine, and that's really where I think both parties have said a lot of the conversations are going to happen is whenever we get out to Indy in a couple weeks.
Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com, with us here on The Fan. Are you starting to feel some momentum? Like we've heard, I mean, Broadus has talked about it plenty. Jake Lazer's talked about it plenty. I think Nick Harris kind of feels this way. Like, I'm trying to temper expectations, but are you getting the feeling that the Cowboys are going to be a little bit more aggressive this time around when it comes to free agency?
Yeah, I do have a little bit, at least in terms of the conversations we had at the Senior Bowl with Will McClay, with Stephen Jones, and just in passing in the building the last couple of weeks. I could see them being more aggressive. Now, you kind of have to temper your expectations, right? I mean, you fellows know just as much as I do that saying it and doing it are two very different things when it comes to free agency and the mindset around it. But when you're this close on one side of the ball and your offense is an elite level offense, plus you look around the division, you see Philadelphia had a down year. They're going through some contract kerfuffle at the moment in their own right. Then you've got New York, who's not necessarily there yet, but they're still building in the right direction. Washington. I think this division is open for the taking as long as you can fix your defense. So if you have the money, which they have the money to clear up first, which I anticipate them to do, but then you're going to have some spending cash available to go into free agency, whether it's not just retaining George Pickens and Javonte Williams, which they've been very open in saying that they would like to do, but in adding talent to the defensive side, even before you get to a draft, that you hold 2 first-round picks there. So, yeah, I think there is a little bit of momentum. They're saying the right things. They showed at least a willingness to be a little more aggressive last year, even though it wasn't an over-the-top spending mentality. It was mostly via trade and some other roster moves. But I could see them going that direction a little bit more so this year.
All right, Kyle, let's talk some draft. I miss being with you on the draft show, but I know you guys are kicking.
I miss you too, buddy.
Kicking butt. And the stack's been fun with Brian and Aisha. So yesterday we ran through a mock situation, and I threw out to them, I was like, okay, we're on the clock. I'm watching how the board's falling. And Washington, I got some word they're about to take Caleb Downs at 7. Cleveland's on the clock at 6. And I'm looking at the trade value chart. I'm like, okay. If we call Cleveland, we package pick 12 and 20 to move up to 6, and then they kick us back pick 39 in the second round, that matches up. Would you do that if the Giants don't take Downs at 5 and he's on the board still when the Browns are on the clock? 12 and 20 to go up to 6, and then you get back 39, but you draft Caleb Downs.
So that's interesting. My return question to you is, why would Cleveland do that?
So
what's the reasoning for Cleveland?
They would then have 3 first-round picks. They'd have 12, 20, and 24. So for them now, they've got more ammunition in the first round, and maybe there's just not maybe they want a wide receiver, and they feel like they could still get their guy at 12 and then pick up an extra 1.
You know, I could see the thought process there because they need multiple spots too. It's not just one place that Cleveland needs to address. I mean, they were 5 and 12 for a reason. I still think it's a little bit of a, even if they return back, they kick you back the second round pick, right?
Yeah.
You get to pick at 6 and 30. What is it? 36?
39.
Is that what you said? 6 and 39. I still think I would value, if it's Caleb Downs, I think I'm okay with it. If it's Caleb Downs specifically, if it's anybody else, I don't think I'm doing that deal just because it's a little bit of an overpay, at least on my chart, and you're banking on him or whoever you select at 6 being so good of an addition, so good of a player that it doesn't matter what you do at the rest of your defense and whatever happens around that. So I think I would do it for Downs. If it's anybody else, I'm not even having that conversation. I'm taking 12 and 20, and I'm making sure that I have 2 legitimate top 20 first-round picks that I can put on this defense and build around, not only right now, because you need to win defensively now in order to keep up with what you're doing on offense, but it gives you something to build around and 2 cornerstones for your franchise moving forward past just the next 3 or 4 years.
Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com with us here on The Fan. I mean, Kyle, I haven't seen Walchuk glow like this talking about a player. Like the man crush for Walchuk on Caleb Downs right now is it's really sky high. I haven't seen him love on a player like this since Spencer Sanders was playing football in high school around here.
Dan Ryan's own Spencer Sanders, baby.
So that is big because I remember the man crush on Spencer Sanders. Now that's high praise there.
It was real.
You follow?
It's probably Cooper Beebe would be the next one. My Cooper Beebe guy, my guy thick as a bowl of oatmeal.
So I mean,
would you say Caleb Downs was more of a man crush than Cooper Beebe?
Yeah, I mean, look, Downs. I think Downs is without question the best player in the draft to me. I mean, I think he's phenomenal. I think he can do anything you need him to do in the secondary. I'm with you. I'm not moving up for anybody outside of Downs. I mean, Arvell Reese is a guy who's got crazy potential, and I'm just playing him at edge, and that is a projection. But Downs to me. He can. I mean, he can cover tight ends one-on-one. I think he can play the nickel for you, play the slot, which Christian Parker covets. Too high, single high. I mean, honestly, Kyle, I think that dude got bored playing in the Big Ten sometimes because they don't test him down the field.
Yeah, he's an incredible prospect. I keep hearing people talking about Kyle Hamilton, and Kyle Hamilton was my favorite safety study since you and I started doing this, close to 7 years ago now, and doing it with the draft show and having DallasCowboys.com as a platform. But man, the Caleb Downs tape is just as good, if not better. And I think I would probably rank him above Kyle Hamilton in that class. And I agree with you. I do think he is the most versatile defensive weapon in the NFL draft this year. And it's really not particularly close, in my opinion, which is why I would even be pressed to think he makes it to 6 or 7, right? Yeah. I know a lot of those teams in front of Cleveland at 6, the Giants, the Titans, the Cardinals, the Jets, of course the Raiders are probably going to take Mendoza and run at the quarterback position, but I find it hard-pressed that he makes it out of the top 5 without one of those teams saying, let's take the most versatile and electrifying defensive player in the draft and let's figure the rest of it out elsewhere, because that's where I think things are going to get dicey with Downs. I don't think he drops. The only way he does drop is if it is a Kyle Hamilton situation and teams get worried about drafting a safety because of the position value that early in the draft. But I think Kyle Hamilton's paved the way to say, don't worry about the position value. Go get a really good football player.
Kyle Youmans got some big Valentine's Day plans?
Ooh.
No, not really.